This was quite the momentous week. I don't know how I can summarize it for you in just a few minutes in this little report here. But you can see behind me, we're just outside the Hart Senate office building where the confirmation hearings for Judge Sonia Sotomayor took place these previous 4 days. And behind me is the little tent where the general public picked up their tickets. By the way, you could have been there because there were general public seats. Now, they would rotate them every few minutes, so you wouldn't have seen much of the hearings. And but it's worthwhile when these things happen. Come on down to Washington, D.C., pick up a ticket and sit in on them. It gives you a feel for what is actually happening and allows you to be close enough to actually discern. Really, you can read body language, see what's going on the periphery, and that's something you didn't get to see on television. A lot was happening behind the scenes. I had the privilege of actually being a guest of one of the Judiciary Committee members, that is one of the senators, one of the top-ranking senators. Also had some behind-the-scenes debriefs with Senate leaders, talking with the staff, some of whom actually wrote the questions that you saw being posed to the nominee. So we got a lot of data behind the scenes. Of course, we were all praying, and prayer has a way of kind of giving you an attenuation, a sort of ability to assess what's happening in a dimension, if you will, that other people don't have. So that was very interesting. Look, this was an enormously consequential week. We had this nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a virtual fait accompli from all the senators I spoke with, both Democrat and Republican. It's a given. This woman will be confirmed as the next sitting Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. She will become a part of our mission here. That is to build a relationship with her, and I started that process, meeting her and her family. So that's all underway. I've told you all that stuff. What I haven't told you is some of the other stuff that was happening. For example, at one point in the hearing, I went with my host, Senator, over to the Health Committee, which was considering a bill that would include, among other things, taxpayer-funded abortion. And he was the one courageous guy to put an amendment on the table that would have taken that out of the bill and prohibited your tax dollars and mine from funding the killing of preborn children. That was doomed to failure. Everybody knew it, but it was the right, courageous, moral thing to do. And what I found interesting was, here was, from our perspective, because of the things we concern ourselves with, you had a Mormon senator team up with a Roman Catholic Democrat, Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, and an evangelical, almost fundamentalist from Baptist, I believe, from Oklahoma, Tom Coburn. What an interesting gang of three at that committee meeting. That was the only, that they were the only three actually at the table. There were other senators, of course, who voted with that amendment, but the amendment did fail. Anyway, all that to tell you there was a whole lot going on behind the scenes. At the same time, we had two more important nominations. Francis Collins to head National Institutes of Health. I know Francis Collins. I have corresponded with him. I've met him personally. He is an evangelical Christian, a Southern Baptist. He's written a book called Language of God, where he argues as a top genetic scientist. In fact, behind the scenes here, they say, you want to know more about genetics than Francis Collins knows? Ask God, because nobody else knows more about genes and DNA than Francis Collins. Now, some people have an issue with him because of some of the positions he takes, and rightfully so. And we're going to address those in the days ahead. Then you have a nomination for Surgeon General, devout Roman Catholic, who has received an award from the Vatican. This is interesting. How does that comport with the president's position on abortion? So all these things are working in the background. We've got a big gang coming by with a lot of conversation. You're probably overhearing that. This is a busy place. You can't find a quiet spot in Washington, period. It just doesn't happen. Let me just say this one last word because this is going on long. But so much is happening here. You have to be aware. The District of Columbia, the City Council, has voted to recognize same-sex marriage here in the District of Columbia. That's very interesting because there's more to that than just allowing, so-called married same-sex couples to be registered and recognized here legally. It's a legal argument probably on a course towards the Supreme Court, and you had the new Supreme Court nominee, soon to be new Associate Justice, very cagey, hedging on her answers about that question of marriage and whether the Supreme Court or the federal government can extend its reach into the states on that issue. It's just enormous. This is so enormous. This was this week changed the landscape in the United States tectonically. Like now we have mountains where there were no mountains, valleys where there were no valleys, rivers where there were no rivers, and the rivers that were there have dried up all in a week. So you got to stay attentive, and we're going to be giving you a good information flow for that. Keep checking in on these iReports. I can tell you 1,000 more things. Gotta go. I'll see you later.